are these
The
people?
top two campaign officials for long-shot Democratic presidential candidate Marianne Williamson has resigned over the weekend. Jason Call, the campaign's deputy manager, told Politico on Monday that he left Williamson's team on Friday. That came after the campaign manager, Peter Daou, announced last Saturday on Twitter that he was leaving the campaign after much consideration, about 1 month into the job. Yeah, so you're right. So that's how you know your campaign's really going downhill. That you can't after 1 month. And I wish I saved that one article about the way that Marianne treats her staff, because I think due distance brought that up too.
Well, yeah, and then you saw the thing. There was a thing during COVID. People were talking about how bad. What was it? The other one of the like part of the squad who was like apparently really tough to work with. I can't think of her name enough. Not Presley. I can't think of it right now. Oh,
yeah,
one who's always talking about Medicare for all. The one who always pretends to care about Medicare for all. What's her name? I can't think of her name.
That's like all of them.
Well, the one I made the meme about. I don't know. I can't think of her name right now, but yeah, apparently that's a thing where it's like awful to work for these people.
So we don't have we can always pull this. This article is more foaming spitting rage. So we don't have to speculate on what that is like. I mean,
definitely not hyperbole. She's frothing at the mouth,
She's I know, I think she's probably some kind of schizo where she's freaking out, and then at the same time she's trying to calm herself down with weird Jinzo meditation techniques. And then just okay, Marianne, okay.
What got her into? Who told her to get into politics? Yeah, exactly.
Probably her spirit animal. I don't know. Fuck. I honestly,
because she just seems out prepared every time to have serious political conversations. I just think about what we talked about a month ago, and she's praising USAID and all these things, and it's just difficult. She hasn't learned anything.
Well, watch this. So Williamson campaign staffer confirmed to Politico that Daou and the Cal left the campaign, but said it was mutually agreed upon a decision after Williamson campaign leaned into a more progressive direction. So this was two left for them, or the way that this is being framed, at least.
What part was it? What part of it was?
I don't know. Giving more weapons to Ukraine, or praise Israel. I don't know. Which one
I mean, I guess if he came from Hillary camp, hardcore.
If you're gonna be in she's
because I don't
she's
know
not far off from a lot of the Kamala Harris.
Really? Oh, it's too far left to pretend to give a fuck about Medicare for all, and her takes on war are terrible. So I don't know what they're specifically complaining about there, because I don't see any really strong policy differences between Hillary and Marianne, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, he's saying here. I mean, perhaps they edited this article recently, and he's saying in an interview with Politico, Daou said it's categorically false that the campaign was too progressive for him. So he declined to talk about any other internal campaign. I saw that tweet as well.
So let me see, because I thought I had some article where I might not have it anymore, but I was reading something that maybe it is just about his family then, but it's just weird to me that he would bail so quick. It just seems this opportunity is not the opportunity I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm. And looks like we have Collin Redix Carter in the party here. I'm going to introduce him here. Hello, Collin.
Hello.
Hola. And we're right in the middle of this fresh off the press political article that pretty much everyone and their fucking grandma is reacting to at this moment, because this came out today, and it looks like after Daou working for both John Kerry, Hillary Clinton, So they have this full timeline of like where he's like stepping down this ladder, or at least whatever this like sort of. So this is
Yeah,
from 2020.
and
I'm quoting the Democratic Party.
Okay. Yeah, so it appears from what was there was another thing where he said it was about his family and he had to leave for his family. I thought there was like an official one. Did you check out his actual website?
That it is what it is, and that's ultimately what I wanted to ask both of you about. So they came out with a campaign statement, supposedly a dual campaign statement.
Yeah,
where,
that.
Yes, my friends and family know that my wife and I have been caring for our ailing parents. It's been tough to do that and focus full time on a presidential campaign. Here's the official Marianne Williamson campaign statement. So, Peter Daou joined the campaign as an interim campaign manager in mid-April. His leadership, integrity, and political skill were instrumental in moving the campaign forward. As Peter explains, urgent family obligations made it difficult for me to continue in my role, but I believe deeply in the campaign's platform, which is the strongest and most transformational of this election. I wish Marianne and the team well as they promote crucial issues like universal health care, climate action, and reparations. And so initially, and I sort of had this thought myself, and I ultimately kind of got the same initial reactions from you two. Is this? I mean, after sitting on this for days, he ended his last tweet with, after much consideration. So apparently, this took a lot of time. For him
so he was debating to take care of his.
He was going back and forth on whether or not to leave, and to
it's
say
so important to take care of anyway.
So and then I had saw a tweet from Collin, which I will pull up, but saying that this you don't necessarily believe this, that you and Chris also said the same thing. So
I would more or less.
No, for someone who has done this as an administrator, like if you have, and I didn't want to come off as a dick, so
me neither. That's how I didn't want to. Like I didn't want to feel.
I sincerely hope that he means what he said in his tweet, that his wife is ill and that he has family issues. If that's the case, I wish him well. But if that was the case, why didn't you say that on Saturday? When, like if your wife is sick, you can just say, hey, I'm stepping down, my wife's sick.
Urgent.
It's urgent. Instead of kind of saying details to follow, So it kind of implies to me.
That was the first thing that I connected. I was like, so you're gonna blue balls those for 3 days to say that like is because of your alien, but your mom was in the hospital the whole time.
Right. Well,
why did it take 3 days to announce that?
It just implies to me that he wanted to leave, and Jason Call actually sent out a tweet mentioning that there are NDAs involved. So So to me, this is a cover. And given what other channels have reported regarding Marianne's, office management, I should say,
her style.
It would seem like
we had just pulled that up.
Right. It would seem like he probably wanted to say something, but then they knocked the NDA on him. So he couldn't say what he wanted to say. So he needed an excuse as to why he's leaving. Because
he needed a public statement.
And we don't know when this statement was released. There's no date, but I would assume it was released today. So again, if it were that Peter Daou was leaving, I would think that he would have said something to the higher ups in the campaign before they released the statement. But that didn't happen. He made the statement on Twitter, and then it gave them like 2 days to be like, flung the NDA on him and basically making a statement basically saying, and like oh, he's leaving for what?
It
whatever.
sounds like they probably got into a fight, and impulsively he was like, all right, I'm done. Like, this obviously isn't working out. And then she's like, you better not say anything. And then he was like, oh shit, I have to come up with something. Like you said, I didn't think of it like that. I just was like, if he had like family that was really sick, he wouldn't have gotten on the campaign, or he wouldn't have left the campaign if he was that invested in it, because he would have already like taken that into consideration.
Exactly.
So I think you're right that it's just cover. It's like more cynical than I was thinking, but I think you're right about that.
No, I mean, no,
I didn't know about her.
I hope to be wrong. I hope to be wrong. That's why
makes
I
more
preface
sense,
by
though.
saying that's why I preface by saying I sincerely hope he's telling the truth, and I hope his family is what he is, and there is some truth to that. But again, I just have the problem with being like, if that was an issue from the jump, why didn't you say that?
Mm-hmm.
And have people make all these theories as to what was going on? Because even as far as yesterday, people were speculating because Andrew Yang was supposed to make an announcement today. Like, people were thinking, oh, maybe Peter was jumping ship with Marianne and going into the forward party or something to that end.
Oh my God.
So, but these were the kind of theories that people were trying to figure out, like, what was the cause. If you just said, my family's sick, okay, people won't be necessarily talking about it, no home, no foul.
Yeah.
So this just screams some bullshit to me. That
I didn't know about the NDA, so that makes a lot more sense to me than what I knew prior to you coming on.
Right.
But it makes sense.
But I didn't whether or not there's an NDA.
I mean, of course, there would be for certain things. Like, if she's like trying to project an image, it would make sense that it's like anything that happens within the office is like privileged.
Well, and I know people, and there was kind of like a debate on this several months ago about NDAs, especially in a public figure like that, especially if you're thinking of celebrities, like,
you shouldn't be able to play that card.
Right. But I do
because that's like easily target, like that's bait.
It's manipulation. You're just
right.
like to project this propaganda image, and like she could be a terrible person.
Right. But the idea that Peter made that tweet Saturday, at least online we get a press release today.
Right.
So that should have been kind of more aligned.
Was that his only tweet between Saturday and today? Did you say some other shit, or was it just like he like a media blackout?
No, he's been going off. I mean, like, I wanted to show you. I want to make you guys feel bad for a second. I mean, like, he's fully, and that's why I called this the section.
So he wasn't preoccupied with his urgent family matter to like not tweet.
No,
on,
I
like,
mean,
a media blackout for 3 days.
He's
just, I don't know.
He's tweeting things like, time to tear down the fucking.
Like, I'm not one to judge. Like, maybe he got some shit going on, but like, if he's like tweeting every still like, if his like tweeting habits haven't changed, like, why? I don't know. It's just another thing. Like, it would have made a little bit more sense if he went on like a media blackout for a few days, or like something serious happened. And it was like, I don't know. We try and sit here and create.
But can either of you explain to me here why is Peter Daou making sense now? Why is he starting to make sense?
Well, that's why people were thinking with this tweet, possibly forward party with Andrew Yang, especially since Andrew Yang, and I don't know if Andrew Yang announced anything today, but
is that what it is?
Yeah, but Andrew Yang mentioned that he had an important announcement today. So that's why people were trying to put the pieces together.
Connect the dots.
I'm thinking like, oh, Peter might be jumping ship to work with the forward party, which is not.
But that's not independent either.
Not party, it's a pack, by the way. But
interesting.
But yeah, it just like, I don't know Peter. Like, I see him online. I don't know him like that. The only thing that I know of him is kind of from the article that you read just before I came in, and then what other people have sent in the threads that I've been in. Like, he just seems like a political comedian in the sense of he'll just go wherever. Like, basically any politician right now, you can almost make that argument. But like, he just basically goes where it's the most politically convenient and probably popular. Like, he went from Hillary to Bernie to Marianne. You know,
Yeah,
so it's
like,
kind of like
all over the place.
right. So
No political ideology whatsoever is what
So-
is kind of what you're suggesting.
you know, this guy is just in it for, I would say, the money, or just like that, you know, just as far as being close to whoever is popular at the moment within the Democratic Party.
Well, I mean, it would make sense to jump ship after hearing the news that there's not going to be any debates. Marianne Williams polling out like what 5-6%, like not good.
Dude, other is poll. The funniest part of that poll with RFK like polling as high as Biden is that Marianne Williamson is lower than other.
Other, yeah,
So
like
people
generic
prefer other,
Democrat,
just like anyone else than Marianne Williamson. So,
But so what if
like,
he got like wind of that and was like, "There's absolutely no opportunity here," and then she's like, "Guess what? I'm a Democrat. Like, you know the game. I can't do this shit." So now he's like, independent.
yeah, but I don't know. Like this surprised me too.
I
Like
know.
this is Jason Call, who is a Green Party candidate, and he resigned from the Marianne Williamson 2024 campaign at the same time, which is supposedly. And I don't know. You tell me whether or not drama went on. I saw a little bit of Vanguard.
So they both bailed on the same day.
Yes.
Interesting.
Essentially, yeah.
And,
so
and
like,
he was so Dow was the campaign manager. Jason Cowell was. What was he doing for Marianne Williamson campaign? Just
not
like campaign finance or something like that. He was
still like
other
high up there.
Yeah.
And but why are we having Green Party candidates funding Democrats? Ultimately, like, and huge thanks to Savvy Sabs for this receipt here, because we wouldn't have this. He's since deleted.
He deleted that tweet.
He's deleted the tweet. Yes. So, what is a Green Party candidate? Why is a Green Party candidate campaigning for a Democrat?
Again,
it doesn't
whatever,
make any sense.
Again, I think it's a matter of whatever is politically expedient or politically profitable for them.
Just the self-interested people who want to get into politics and they see a way with Marianne Williamson.
Yeah.
Just shitty.
Or I think just in terms of just being within her stratosphere,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just the name recognition alone, you know, like it's kind of why, you know, like especially with Crystal and Kyle and certain people in the space that we know that kind of are pushing Marianne, you know, like it's just a matter of being close to the name to get you notoriety so that you can get more views or you get more like, you know, standing, you know, as far as celebrity wise.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but
at the same time, it is kind of like entryism to getting kind of co-opted by the Democratic Party at the same time, though.
Yes.
So that's kind of like he's kind of like moving. He's kind of like shifting the Overton window a little bit more right by associating Green Party with like Marianne Williamson, solid Democrat. I guess I would make that argument anyway. Like,
it's like
when you start associating those parties into Democratic parties, it's not the Democratic Party moving left. That's those parties trying to build out, which doesn't work. Trying to freaking enter, like that's going to change anything, you know? So there's just no historical.
A lot of this and like a lot of like what I see like happen in this space is a lot like that. This like recent South Park episode that has to do with like dealing with like your quote unquote like your brand. And basically, like if you're humiliated or you don't like yourself, you could just go to this brand management company and change your brand.
I mean, that's basically what it is.
And it comes with like special quotes and like little personality quirks that you have to like all like. And it's like that's what it is. It feels like everything is just like matching a specific brand. Like progressivism, like quote unquote progressivism, is popular, so that is the new brandish thing. That's my new thing to capture on.
I mean, that seems to be like what's going on here between both Dow and Call.
The dead Bernie cow.
Yes.
This is like milking a zombie Bernie cow full of like coins.
The thing is, like, I don't think Marianne Williamson is like
squeezing out the last bits of cash you can get, whatever you want to do to, you know, milk your money off of this campaign.
That's why I
wanted to get your reaction to this, Collin. This one's also fresh off the press.
Do you know how she got into
the Guardian?
Colin, do you know how she got into politics? Somebody just like told her to do it.
I believe she ran. Because
because she does
She
not.
ran-
She was a spiritual
Local-
advisor for
ran
the
in local
Clintons in like the
politics.
90s.
She ran in local politics before, like
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
you know, back in the 90s, I believe. But obviously that didn't go anywhere for her. So then I think she from there, and people in the chat.
This is definitely not her first rodeo.
Yeah. So yeah.
Definitely not.
So but then she kind of transitioned into becoming an author, and then like Oprah essentially picked her up. So you know she got into the Oprah stratosphere. So she became like a minor celebrity of sorts. You know, just kind of being like this guru. You know, like you know, hippie chick who sold like self-help like vein up until you know like
Oh my God.
you know most recently like 2020 you know when she you know ran
right
in this last election. But yeah, but no, it's
will you be able to tell me like how pompous is this title alone here? This sounds like a Hillary Clinton quote, but
Yeah.
this came out literally right before I started the stream.
Mhm.
Like I just found this.
right.
Marianne, you don't even know what misogyny is until you've been a woman running for president. Incredible. Absolutely
Yeah,
incredible.
I mean,
and I browsed through it. It's just basically a pompous piece for Marianne, which is, you know, pretty much given whatever her marketing management is.
I think people honestly, I think people are making this more of an issue than what it really needs to be, because
we don't need to be focused.
No, we don't. Need to
we
be
really
focusing
don't. She
on
means
this.
nothing.
No,
she doesn't mean anything.
Like this whole thing is just.
It's funny watching.
I think I know. I really think like red wedding like kind of like removed like the mask off and everyone like kind of get it.
Yeah.
Like got it at that point. Like especially after the RFK interview, everyone was like, okay, like this is like a shameless.
It's like everybody's just
project.
watching these like opportunists just kind of come and go and cycle through Marianne and be like, okay, how can I use this lady to like propel my own career or get my book out of it, or like use her vibe to eventually like use that to like hoist my own career. It just doesn't seem like she just runs like a very fake campaign, unserious campaign, and like people are just kind of like running through her, like trying to be associated with her, trying to be attached to some.
Yeah, and I think like really like kind of like getting angered by this is like Collin makes a good point. Like this is really just like the ultimate like next Democratic Party psyop. Because like really like we're wasting our time just talking.
Well, it's like remember that CIA
Like,
video from a couple years ago where they were like the woke CIA, and it was that lady talking about I'm like of like this certain heritage way back in the day, and like I'm like all these different things, and so it's just about taking all these different like culture issues and social issues and trying to bring them into the Democratic Party, so we all get co-opted. So we love these things. That's kind of how I see it. Like unserious person.
And I see a lot of similar things happening with RFK Jr. too. Like to me, like, and I've seen, or I've gotten at least like a lot of like Tulsi Gabbard guy vibes. And, I mean, I don't really see this guy winning in any capacity whatsoever, or even like getting in the primary at all. I mean, to think about that is a long shot, and like think we're putting our hopes into something. Kind of,
you should pull up that
last resort.
You should pull up that if we're talking about RFK, Kim Iverson video where she indicted the DNC and was like, I have zero faith in DNC whatsoever. Like, why not run independent? He's like, well, like I don't know, like we'll see, blah 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 blah. But like Kim Iverson,
and he did a similar thing on Breaking Points too, where he said it was pretty much like a dead end.
Like why does he think that he's any different than any other person who's running the Democratic Party? Like,
what he plans to do is he plans to build all of this energy, take up all of this movement, and lead his audience into a dead end. And then once his movement dies, he's going to do nothing.
It's not a dead end. It's leading them into the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
We know, and plenty of people
it's like shuffling them back.
But he signed a contract basically saying that if you lose, you have to endorse whoever the candidate.
The pledge.
Right. That's what Tulsi did. You know, that's what all of them did in 2020. I'm not sure like Tulsi like actively endorsed, but you know, but
she did.
Yeah.
So,
she did. You know, so and like but all that to say, I think the reason why this Peter Daou Jason Call thing has gotten a lot more play than I think it really needs to have is this is coming off the heels of the interview that Crystal did with JFK last week, and just the idea like she used that interview to essentially it, it's funny that how people were kind of focusing on like the clip that went around just regarding COVID when it was about an hour interview. There was a lot more, which I didn't watch because it was just like whatever. But everyone was hyper focused on that spat that Crystal and RFK had regarding COVID. So that kind of elevated the conversation in terms of people kind of seeing, oh, Crystal was not, being very biased in terms of her relationship with Marianne, especially since she officiated her wedding a couple of weeks ago. And now all of a sudden, like not even a week after, fresh off her honeymoon, like she's going off on RFK. So that
that was a smear video that was a smear video on RFK, so that she can.
But that coupled with this, again, it's the reason why this has gotten a lot of attention, because
this feels like the ultimate implosion of the Marianne industrial complex. Like, tell me, like, gentlemen, is this the end, or like, is this like the last dying breath of the Marianne Williamson campaign, or like, what do you see?
Well, I mean, isn't that kind of what you're saying, Collin? That like the very idea of the Marianne Williamson campaign is kind of like, by giving it attention, we're basically kind of like propping it up, and we should.
True, that's true.
It's
like we really like, it's kind of like a psyop in and of itself because we know it's not real, but yet we have discourse on it and we like debate these things, and like maybe Daou was like, oh shit, this stuff really isn't real. They're like, saw that Simone Sanders video where she was like, yeah, they already like in DNC is going with Biden. That's what's happening. There's not going to be any debates. And Daou was like, all right, hell with this. Why aren't you running independent? Oh, well, I can't. You see the DNC, but the NDA, you can't say anything about that. And so here we are.
Like, I'm curious about that. Like, what? Like that was like the conversation that I was like really like. Well, this you're seeing like this natural progression from this guy who was literally campaigning for Hillary Clinton. He's now tweeting things like, "We need an independent candidate or third party candidate,"
because they know they know it's popular. Like most people in the country who vote support the idea of a third party. So
do you see that becoming like the next like brand? Is like the next brand thing? Like, it's not going to be like progressive anymore. It's going to be like the next brand is going to be like.
Well, Yang is trying to.
Quote unquote. It's going to be like a Yang.
Well,
yeah,
Yang
exactly.
is trying to market off of that.
Do you see that?
But I wouldn't call the forward party independent. That's just
no, it's not. But they're marketing themselves as such, and it's not really independent in terms of what we kind of consider independent. Do I think this is kind of the next wave? If it is, it's going to be a bastardization of what it should be, because the reality is,
it always is.
Right. Yeah. If anything, it's like the duopoly is not going to allow for a third party to exist.
Right.
So they might do a swerve and try to give the impression of, oh, like, here's something like an alternative, which we'll call independent, but it's really not. Do I imagine that's going to happen anytime soon? Personally, no. I think people are still caught up in the idea of like, and even people like Crystal have said this. It's like third parties are not viable. Independent parties don't have a chance. I think a lot of people at this point are still kind of having that in their psyche. Like third party, like as much as people may want it, but the thing is, people are not willing to do the work to try and get a third party viable. So unless that happens, and that has to come from the people versus these bigger YouTubers or even like our politicians in government, unless we are actually actively doing the work to make that push for that to happen, it's not going to happen. And I don't see that happening anytime soon, given how there's more the fear mongering of like Trump and DeSantis, and like how like the Democratic Party is basically lined up against Biden, even though secretly they do not want him to run again. And so I just feel like it's not going to happen, at least now, unless a miracle happens.
That's what, like, why why are people so in now? Now I'm not endorsing violence, but why are we so interested in this civility politics in the sense of like working through the system or having to incrementally fix the system in order to cause change, which I think is way too slow for the situation that we're in right now.
Well, here's my thought on this, and like doing this on the ground, incrementalism can be a good thing. The issue is that you have to have an end goal. It's kind of like the equivalent of like losing weight. Like you can say you want to lose 50 pounds, but as something that's a little more like manageable and something that's kind of more practical, you might say, okay, within this first month, I want to lose like 5, and then next month I'll lose more, and then next month I'll lose more. So it's the idea of like, it's a snowball effect. The idea like you're working these little incremental things kind of eventually lead into one big thing. That's what should be happening in terms of politics. But what happens is
we're not even doing that.
Right. What happens is that, you know, we have the lofty goal, let's say like, well, I mean, people say like Medicare for all is like the all and end all. Personally, I don't think so. We should have nationalized healthcare. But like, so let's say for this argument, you know, nationalized healthcare. You know, we have Medicare for all, which even Bernie has said is the compromise. You know, but the problem is we kind of set Medicare for all as the gold standard.
Right. We've
and
already
now we're
lowered the
kind
bar
of
for
working
ourselves.
backwards from there. You know, like and it's funny, I think just basically like living in the West, I say people don't know how to haggle. Like if you go to the global South, like if you're buying something like in the market or something, you know, like you always shoot for the extreme, and then like and the merchant will kind of say something like really low, but eventually you kind of come somewhere in the middle that both of you are comfortable with. We don't do that here. We always start with like the middle ground, and then you work backwards to like less than the compromise. And I think essentially that's the problem, is when we talk about, you know, policy in terms of having something more radically transformative, we always start from the compromise position and work our way backwards. But then if in the event when we get that compromise, even less than, we just say, okay, good, we're done. That's the issue.
Right. And then it's like, oh, look what they did for us. Look at all these wonderful things that we have now. Or like these like increments, or like, what was that thing that, we have, remember when AOC said that we have PAYGO for Medicare for all? That's never going to happen. Like
we got PAYGO.
We got
guys.
PAYGO.
Yeah, that's why we couldn't force the vote.
Why don't you tell the Americans
that's why we couldn't force the vote.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like they want us to kind of be satisfied with the little wins because they know like the big things would be impossible for us to get given, you know, how corrupt our government is. And so they have to kind of settle for people in terms of like essentially keeping their jobs, you know, like really market the crumbs to give the illusion that they're actually doing something.
Like just recently, they capped insulin at $35 for Medicare patients, and that's it.
Right.
You know, like so it's like they cannot, like nobody can get a win. So it's like make the argument that like maybe like 15-20% of the population gets some sort of discount. But like
they just can't touch the insurance agencies is what they just can't fuck with them at all.
So many examples of how that like incrementalism kind of like doesn't go in the direction we need it to.
Incrementalism, and this is from my advocacy work that I really had to get my head around this year. It's the idea of incrementalism can be a good thing, but you have to know what your end goal is and kind of work your way down, you know, in order to try to figure out what are the practical steps in order to get there. We don't talk about it in those terms. It's always kind of like,
and I would think like something like that would be make more sense under single party rule, like incrementalism. Hey, let's argue about all the things that we're going to do for people.
That is what we have. We live in an oligarchy.
Well, no, I mean, like we have the duopoly and we have like a two-party system, but it's not like China.
It's two factions.
Like I'm saying, like you can have like China that has a one-party rule, and they're doing incrementalism under one-party rule. You know, they have their 5-year plans, they have their 10-year plan, like et cetera, et cetera. And like they're debating over the nuance. And something like that, I could see it work. You know, I'm not saying I'm like endorsing like the way that China runs its government, but I'm saying that like I could see it working more effectively or the way it's supposed to under like a one party or a single party rule, rather than like the kind of corrupt shit where we have where they use incrementalism against us, so that, you know, like we've spoken about, we're like happy we get breadcrumbs, or happy that like these fictional things are given to us that don't matter, you know, like Pago or freaking like the insulin thing, like just it works
Yeah, like
against
I
us,
think like I really think that we can reference the crystal ball argument where she was telling us to vote for Marianne, where we can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. We can vote and do activism. We can do electoralism at the same time. Yeah, sure. We can. I think we can probably do some electoralism shit. I think we can fight for some from legislation reform. We can definitely stop some bills from some very insidious bills from happening. But we should play that game in a politically strategic way, not waste our time into things that have demonstrably fucked us off twice already.
Right.
Yeah.
The way that electoralism works in a perfect world would be you have a politician, let's say locally, who has a tried and true record of actually having some success in terms of, you know, their town or their city or whatever. And then they eventually, you know, kind of progress from there in terms of like if they're a mayor and like maybe going for governor, and then governor, you know, like congressman or whatever, like having a tried and true record, you know, from there, so that when they get to, you know, federal office, you can see a litany of policies that they've implemented, you know, during their tenure that makes them a viable candidate. The problem is, more often than not, is the people who are usually running, in this case for president, either have shitty records that people do not necessarily do their homework on, that, you know, that is not taken into consideration fully, like when they run for office, or they're people who have money that just kind of step in.
Right.
With no political experience, no like experience in terms of actually working within communities or areas that they work for or serve, that we're able to kind of tell, you know, what they're capable of doing. And so so electoralism really should be, it works only if people are involved and are pushing,
people are held accountable,
people holding them accountable to that as they progress, that they actually are doing shit.
There was something else I wanted to say to your point really quick. It made me think of, you also have the people like Kashwama Sawant, who like I think did like city council, and she would never try and do like governor or president or anything like that because she knows those positions are more corrupt. So there's kind of this thing where like the people who may very well had an opportunity to do like a lot of good at like those highest offices know the highest offices are so thoroughly corrupt that they try and do the best that they can in more local areas.
Right.
So local activism is definitely a lot more effective.
Yeah.
It's definitely a lot easier.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I
wouldn't say it's easier, but well, it's easier
more
in
effective.
terms of like you have more access to them. Like, and I think especially for me, given what I do, I've been able to talk to my councilmen in DC. I've actually had meetings with them frequently in terms of doing legislation for teachers here. I know them on Twitter. Like, I go off on them on Twitter. You know, I've met them for meetings and I've been able to talk to them personally. Oh, a few of them have come to my school to talk to me in regards to, you know, certain issues that have been happening, you know, just within DC over the last few years. So it's not just for me. I realize the privilege that you know, most people in the city do not have that kind of access, but that's not to say that there are not ways that even people who are not doing what I do not have that capability of having that same access as well. It's just that we do not focus on local politics at all. No. We always look to
No one does.
We always look to, at best, we might look to state in terms of what the governor might be doing in a certain state, or maybe even a congressperson, like who, like within their certain district. But we never look to our mayors. We don't look to the councilmen who are responsible for the books in terms of like, you know, if they're going to build libraries in your city, if they're going to like pave over roads in your city. Those are practical things that people should get more involved in that we don't emphasize enough.
Like, have you ever gotten your ballot back in the day and it said like one of the people was running unopposed? Like, oh, we put so much effort into like these positions that we vote from, and we pretend that they're getting voted in, and there's no other candidate that's running against them. You know, or like incumbents just that be there like for years because we don't pay attention to our local politics, and they just like get in because they're the only one there and nobody runs against it.
Just no one else is running.
Yeah, like I used to see that multiple times, like when I used to vote, like whether it was in Colorado or wherever, but like frequently people running unopposed. Like wow, just like that. But the one thing I will still pay attention to once in a while, I just want to say, is that like ballot referendums is like sometimes where like the states kind of pick up the pieces. So like Colorado has had a ballot referendum for basically their form of Medicare for all, so to speak, like twice, and it's gotten shot down both times because of lobbying, of course. Mm-hmm. One time it was a referendum, and one time it went to they like voted on it and never got through. But yeah, it got shot down by lobbies both times. So those are like the one thing where like people can still have some sort of impact, I feel like, in electoralism other than beyond local voting is like would be like the referendums, but not every state has them.